Today I'm going to be watching with you, for the first time for me anyway, the new Odyssey trailer by Christopher Nolan. Here is my translation by Kirk Barbera, that's me, of the Iliad for first-time readers. You can go to Troubadour.Studio /Iliad to get a version. You can get the first chapter for free to see if you like it. And the reason I'm telling you this like this at the beginning is because I have not seen this trailer. I really haven't, but I've already seen so much of the controversy and the conversation around it, which I want to talk about after I watch the trailer with you. So I'm going to watch this trailer. We're going to go through it, and then please stick around for afterwards, where I will go through a little bit to help you understand something. I think something about the Odyssey itself. I'm currently working on an Odyssey translation. I'm on book 9. I have the first 9 books basically translated in their rough draft, and then I'm going to go through it line by line, word by word to perfect it. My job and my goal is to allow and to help first-time readers experience and have a great experience of these great works of literature. Go to Troubadour.Studio to check out more. I also do courses on Homer. I'm doing a course on the Odyssey with a group of people right now, and I do cinema courses. My degree is in film production. So this is my world. I love this stuff. So I'm excited to see what one of our greatest filmmakers is going to make of one of the West's great stories, a story that's been retold in so many different ways over the last several thousand years. Okay, so let's get into this.
Tell me what you remember.
Odysseus. Okay, all his men.
A wife? A son.
Rosy-fingered Dawn.
And then what?
We won the war.
Oh, it's a beast.
Help me go home.
This is a household waiting for master. I want you to choose me.
I think his king is coming back.
No, he's not.
What would he do if he came back here and find all these suitors in his house?
Must be Laertes.
They're pining for a daddy you didn't even know, like some sniveling bastard.
Who's looking after your wife and son?
Get him.
Do you see?
My dad is coming home.
Bringing vengeance.
Bringing it all.
Let's go!
I need everyone at this party dead.
I can still save them.
You're a man who needs to control his fate. But you cannot control this. That world is gone.
They're gonna bring the dog.
No one could stand between me and home.
Saddest moment.
Not even the gods.
Keep us straight!
Sacrilege. Scylla and Charybdis.
I think it's asleep.
Nope. Woo! I'm gonna pause for a moment here. I want to look up a couple things, because what I actually think I want to do, because I knew this is what I did know in advance, is a lot of people have been talking about the language, of course, having no concept of how language shifts and how various the translations have been over the last several thousands of years. I mean, there are there's thousands of translations probably. Most of them are probably dead and are lost. There's different translations of this all over the place, and they're very, very, very different. So to even complain about the daddy, the tone of their voice, the accents that they're choosing to use in this particular modern adaptation does show that you are completely ignorant, which is okay. Ignorant just means lack of knowledge. So let's get a little bit of knowledge here. But it means you're completely ignorant of the different changing tides of language and how they adapt and change over time. I mean, what language would you want them to use? Like, would you want them to use what we think might be? We don't even know what might be the way that the rhapsodes, the Homeric rhapsodes of the 8th century BC, what they might have. We don't know. We think, and there's some interesting, ways that you can go to YouTube and search for what it might have sounded like with the drum beats and maybe a lyre or something like that. That's what you want this to be? That doesn't make any sense at all. Like the point of Homer is to adapt it to your audience because it's a malleable myth. That's the wonderful thing about the myths, is that they're malleable. They can go through the furnace of a new artist every generation and come out with something new for that audience. That's what makes them beautiful and amazing and lasting, that they still have this. So what I'm going to do actually, as I'm thinking about this, is I'm going to read a couple of passages from book 2. One, I think I'll probably, well, maybe 3 or 4 actually, if you want to stick around. One, I think I will use E.V. Ryu's, which I think is probably the clearest translation. It's one of the best for first-timers. And then I might do maybe Butler, Samuel Butler. He's around 1900, because he has kind of one of the first of the new translation, the new type of translation that's more modern, but it's more approachable. And then I'll probably do a little bit of Alexander Pope, so you could see just how wildly different this can be. And maybe this will alleviate the conversation a little bit of people talking about how they shouldn't talk in this form, they shouldn't have this accent, they shouldn't be these actors. I don't know, whether this is a good movie or not, I don't know. I think it's absurd to critically and analyze a film you haven't seen. That to me is a bizarre modern invention, this idea that I already have this narrative sense of what I think I want this to be. And instead of finding out what it is and exploring it for what it is as this massive epic story that's, an incredible inspiration and a foundational piece of the Western canon and how it's been adapted to a modern audience, instead of doing that, I'm just going to, write it off and think of it as ridiculous and stupid because he says dad. That's ridiculous and stupid. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second and I want to look up some of these different translations, see what I come up with, and kind of break down a couple things for you. Okay, the scene I want to recover and look at a little bit more carefully here with you is this scene.
What would he do if he came back here and find all these suitors in his house?
It's Laertes.
You're pining me for a daddy you didn't even know, like some sniveling bastard.
You're pining after a daddy you never knew, like some sniveling bastard. So what's really going on? What could Nolan be pulling from? So I'm going to read a couple different passages. So this is, to me, clearly from book 2 of the Iliad. And book 2 is part of a 4-book series, essentially. And the poem opens up talking about sing to me of the man of twists and turns, the wily Odysseus who went on all these adventures, but all of his men died, not because of him. This is one of the big ancient controversies is, he's supposed to be this great leader of men, and yet all of his men die. So it's like Romans later will be like, no, Virgil says, no, this guy's a schmuck, right? He's a bad dude. Like all his guys died. And now Homer loves Odysseus very much. He has a whole book dedicated to him, obviously. So what he says is they died because they ate of the cattle of the sun god and despite being told not to. Now, again, if you're a leader, like in America, we think of the buck stops with you. And so if that happened, that's because it happened because of you. And that's how, the Romans would see it. Anyway, so that's kind of the opening proem, the invocation at the beginning. But then the poem, the Odyssey, goes through 4 books that are nicknamed the Telemachy or Telemachy, whatever you want to pronounce his name. which is the story of Telemachus. We don't see Odysseus for the equivalent of maybe 4 to 6 hours of performance, right? So just imagine you're kind of sitting there, you hear this invocation of Odysseus, and then we talk about his son for 4 days or for 8 hours or whatever. And you're like, what? And now you hear a lot about Odysseus, but you don't see him until book 5. And part of what Homer is doing in his poem is setting up the conflict, and he's making it this over and over again, beating into the head of the audience that Odysseus, this man that we've all been thinking about, must get home now. He creates urgency in this big epic tale that, really is a 10-year homecoming. He creates urgency immediately, making it seem like you got to get home now because there's suitors eating you. Penelope's trick is done. Telemachus is still a boy. He's not even a man. He's not like you. He's not a man enough to do what is necessary, which we'll talk about. That's a big part of the daddy bastard sequence and what's going on with that. So let me just read a little bit here, and I'll read the same passage from different authors, different translators, so you can see how wildly this is different. So this is when, in book 2, when Telemachus, at the urging of Minerva in one translation, or Athena in another translation, who is also disguised as Mentor, it gets really confusing. So it's going to be interesting to see how Nolan deals with all of this. What he's told to do is to bring together all the suitors in a debate, essentially. And he kind of accuses them of doing something against their king and against their land. Because again, Telemachus is the prince. So one of the dilemmas at the beginning of this 4-book Telemachy that sets up the whole thing is the legitimacy of Telemachus. Because if Odysseus is dead, which they don't know, right, which causes problems not knowing, but if Odysseus is dead, then Telemachus should be the king, right? He's the prince. But there is a question of succession, right? That's the issue, is who is going to be king, because they don't know where Odysseus is. And then there's even a question of, well, you've never even met him. So how do you know? So this is a deep anxiety that men have had up until DNA testing, right? Of, well, is this my son? Right? Is this father, like, you can't really know. It's one reason why in a lot of ancient, patriarchal societies like this, they would lock up women a lot and make sure they hid them behind people who they could trust, so they knew who their children were. I don't think that's right. Obviously, it's ridiculous, but that's what they did. Okay, here's book 2. Telemachus has accused them, of eating him out of house and home, breaking a sacred religious sacrilege of breaking the guest-host relationship. That's a no-no in this era, and they're doing that. It's punishable by death. So Telemachus kind of speaks up. He almost feels like for a second he kind of gets his manly, girdle up or whatever, and he's like, I'm a man, and he's going to speak up. And this is what the text says. It amazed them all that Telemachus should have the audacity to adopt this tone, and they could only bite their lips. But at last, Antonius, Ephialtes' son, spoke up in answer. It is obvious that the gods are teaching you this bold and haughty way of speaking. Being your father's son, you are heir to this island's realm. Heaven grant that you may never be its king. So he's attacking him as, potentially his king, but he doesn't want it. That's kind of like the daddy but bastard line. Now here is the same basic exchange, and I'm cutting out all of Telemachus' speech, of course, where he kind of attacks them. You could go read it for yourself. Go to Troubadour.Studio /Iliad, get yourself the Iliad and read that first, because that's an important part of the whole story. Here is the Butler translation, and it's a little bit different, you'll notice. Thus spoke Minerva, daughter of Jove, that's Athena, daughter of Zeus, and Telemachus lost no time in doing as the goddess told him. He went moodily home and found the suitors flaying goats and singeing pigs in the outer court. Antonius came up to him at once and laughed as he took his hand in his own, saying, Telemachus, my fine fire eater, bear no more ill blood, neither in word nor deed, but eat and drink with us as you used to do. The Achaeans will find you in everything, a ship and a packed crew to boot, and you can set sail for Pylos at once and get news of your noble father. Antonius answered Telemachus, I cannot eat in peace nor take pleasure of any kind with such men as you are. And then they kind of go back and forth. And then as he leaves, then Antonius and his mates, the other suitors, think, oh, he's going to leave to Sparta, the land of Menelaus. And he might go be getting allies to come bring back to us to kill all of us and get us out of his house. So the stakes are being risen. Now, what Nolan has to deal with, of course, is trying to make the problems very clear to a modern audience and doing it in a visual way. So they need the acting to be Telemachus is a boy, not a man yet, even though he's 20 years old. He has to be in at least 2021 because Odysseus left when he was born or after he was born. There's a famous story of how they found Odysseus for the war, and where Odysseus is kind of acting like he's crazy as he's kind of tilling the land in Ithaca. And in order to prove that he's not crazy, they put his little boy, his baby, in front of him, and he swerves off, and they're like, haha, I got you. You're not actually crazy. Come with us. You have to fight in the Trojan War. And so he takes all of his men. That's another important part of the whole story, is that he takes all of his men, all the fighting men, which would be the fathers, not only of Telemachus, but a lot of the people around that age, right? So this is a land of fatherless people, fatherless boys. And this is what happens is, one, Telemachus isn't man enough to be prince and king. And two, the suitors don't know how to behave properly, and they are okay with, acting improperly and uncivilized by eating people out of their house and home. Okay, so that's the basic story. And then when you have Telemachus arguing with Antonius, they're worried he's going to go get some allies. Telemachus is actually going to kind of learn about his father and maybe get some allies. It's part of the stakes at that's going on. And he's trying to figure out what to do. So what I see in this trailer is Nolan, this is just the trailer. We don't know what he's going to do yet, but it's something he's, trying to set this up by showing you Telemachus is a boy. And I think Tom Holland's perfect for this. Literally Spider-Man. You have the feelings that you have when you watch him of the Peter Parker and Tony Stark relationship, where he's not yet a man. Robert Pattinson, which I think is a marketing brilliant thing, because the fact that all of you hate him already, there's so many people who hate him hate the choice of him. And it's like, well, that's exactly how you're supposed to be feeling. So you should go in there feeling, I hate this guy. I hate the actor. I don't like his performance. Just the fact that you feel all those things, I think is actually a good thing, because if you know the ending, it might make you feel better about the ending if you know what happens. I'm not going to spoil the ending. It's only been 3,000 years or whatever, but maybe we'll talk about that at the end, spoilers at the end. But that's part of what Homer also has to do. He has to justify what's going to happen at the end, because it's pretty crazy in a lot of ways. So this is just a little snippet out of the same kind of area in Alexander Pope. So Alexander Pope wrote this in the first part of the 18th century, the 1700s. He is going to be more Augustan, more aristocratic, polished. There's a lot of heroic couplets. It's elegant. It's considered high literary verse that you're trying to go for, versus Butler, which we listened to, which is a radical shift. It's much more direct, much more readable, much more plain spoken. It's even got some psychological realism in it. And Evie Ryu, who comes, I think, about 40 years later, he's in 1946 or so. The Evie Ryu is even more on the kind of Butler aim, I think. And he goes for making clarity of what's going on for you to make it easy for the modern reader at that time to read it. And that's the vein that I'm in when I'm translating. Okay, so here's just a little snippet from the Pope. She spoke, that's Minerva. She spoke, to his high dome the prince returns, and as he moves with royal anguish mourns. 'Twas riot all among the lawless train. Boar bled by boar, and goat by goat lay slain. Arrived, his hand the gay Antonius pressed, and thus deriding with a smile addressed. Grieve not, O daring prince, that noble heart. Ill suits gay youth the stern heroic part. Indulge the genial hour, unbend thy soul. Leave thought to age, and drain the flowing bowl. Studious to ease thy grief, our care provides the bark to waft thee o'er the swelling tides. Okay, so that's him sending him off, but in an ironic way, saying, go off, enjoy the feast and just go off, you foolish little boy kind of thing. He's deriding and mocking and making fun of him. All of this has been, I hope, enlightening in one sense, that the whole purpose of Nolan's story, or is the whole purpose of redoing the Odyssey is to redo the Odyssey. So the last thing I'm going to read to you is a wonderful children's book written by the American romanticist of the 19th century, Nathaniel Hawthorne. I think every kid today should read this book. It's called A Wonder Book for Boys and Girls. A Wonder Book for Boys and Girls by Nathaniel Hawthorne with 60 designs by Walter Crane is available on EPUB for free right now because it's in the public domain. And I'm going to read you just the preface, and we'll end with this because, again, I'm really frustrated by people who prejudge these works of art, whether, before saying that it's going to be horrible or bad or dumb or these are bad choices. We can't know that until at least we watch it. Give the Nolan guy some credit, for God's sakes, and give it some time. Just because you think you could do better, which you can't, that's a ridiculous thing. So here's what Hawthorne has to say at the beginning. This is a preface for his Wonder Book for Boys and Girls, which are retellings of classical Greek myths. So here's what he says. The author has long been of opinion that many of the classical myths were capable of being rendered into very capital reading for children. In the little volume here offered to the public, he has worked up half a dozen of them with this end in view. A great freedom of treatment was necessary to his plan, but it will be observed by everyone who attempts to render these legends malleable in his intellectual furnace that they are marvelously independent of all temporary modes and circumstances. They remain essentially the same after changes that would affect the identity of almost anything else. Did you catch that? They are marvelously independent of all temporary modes and circumstances. They remain essentially the same. So in other words, even after I make all the adaptations to make it a modern, in this case, 1851 book for young kids in America, modern, so they could read it with all the updates of the language. Despite that, it's so marvelously independent of temporary modes of circumstances that it remains the same. So you could change it all you want. It's going to be the same if you tell the story if you tell the essence of the story. I'm going to continue reading this. There's 2 more paragraphs. He does not, therefore, plead guilty to a sacrilege, and having sometimes shaped anew, as his fancy dictated, the forms that have been hallowed by an antiquity of 2,000 or 3,000 years. No epoch of time can claim a copyright in these immortal fables. They seem never to have been made, and certainly, so long as man exists, they can never perish. But by their indestructibility itself, they are a legitimate subject for every age to clothe with its own garniture of manners and sentiments and to imbue with its own morality. Check on that. So dress it up all you want. You want different armor for Agamemnon? Give it different armor. That's okay. It's still the freaking Odyssey. This is the greatest 19th century American romantic author. So if that's not authority, I don't know what is. In the present version, they may have lost much of their classical aspect, or at all events, the author has not been careful to preserve it, and have perhaps assumed a Gothic or romantic guise. So again, Nathaniel Hawthorne's making it his own, making it part of his own. This is the Scarlet Letter guy. I've gone on a lot. I just wanted you to see this. I hope you get as pumped as I am about seeing this movie. Go to an IMAX theater if you can. Go see this movie. Check it out. Talk about it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. No one's going to tell you to like this movie. If it's stupid because you think it falls flat when you see it, that's perfectly a legitimate response. It is dumb as hell to criticize it before you've even seen it. That is the dumbest thing. Or to have dread. Just go in and watch a retelling from someone you know is one of the great artists of our time, directorial artists. whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. He is clearly one of the greats by definition of any definition of great. He's achieved it. Okay, see there, if you have any questions about my flare, my little flare buttons, this is from the Renaissance Festival that I was just at recently. And I got my tunic because I was talking about the Odyssey. Thank you so much. Troubadour.Studio /Iliad. Check out my translation, check out my courses, and I'll see you next time.